Hi guys, welcome to part 3 of our look at the book of Ruth, and today we're focusing in on the third character. We started in week 1 looking at Elimelech and his decisions and the consequences of sin, and then last week we looked at Naomi, and we looked at how the fact even in the worst of circumstances she holds to this truth that God is in control. And now in week 3 we finally get to the title character, Ruth, and we're just going to look at a little bit of how she moves from an outsider to begins to become an insider, a key person really in the history of the Bible, in the history of God's story of redemption. So we're going to look at Ruth. What do we know about Ruth at this point? Well, we know she's a Moabite, from one of the nations surrounding Israel, a nation that had been an enemy of God's people. And we know particular about her that she'd married one of Naomi's boys, but she was now a widow, and that meant that her future was insecure. Her financial security, her value, her worth, her protection, her safety, all of these things are up for grabs. And then we, as we join the story, we find Naomi seeking to encourage her to stay, to go home. Look down at verse 8, chapter 1, verse 8. Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." And even in Naomi's words, we get the idea that for Ruth to be a widow is to be in a place of unrest. But what we find is that Naomi has had an impact on Ruth that brings Ruth to want to go with Naomi, and more than that, to want to go to Naomi's people and to Naomi's God. Let me read Ruth's response. Orpah is turned around by Naomi, but Naomi can't convince Ruth to go back. So let me just read from verse 14. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the 2 women went on until they came to Bethlehem. This is a great confession. This is where Ruth stands. This is now who she says, "This is who I am." And what we find is that Ruth can't be put off. Naomi tries hard, but ultimately you can't be put off from what you know is good and what you know is true. Liv and I have got a friend who's got kids, and when his kids were younger, when they'd have McDonald's, he would have Coke to drink. But when his son was around, he would basically take a drink of the Coke and then pull a face like this every time he had a sip, to try and convince his son not to like Coke. I don't think that's worked because you can't be put off what you know tastes good. And in the same way, we see for Ruth that she can't be put off even by Naomi's arguments about the fact that she's probably won't going to have any more children. And even if she did, it's going to be years and years before they grow up, and Ruth could marry one of them, given that the culture at the time. Ruth can't be put off, and we see a couple of reasons for that. She's compelled by the love that she's been shown, the loving relationship she has with Naomi. She wants to be with Naomi. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. she's all in with Naomi. And more than that, she's compelled by God, by the God that has become her God. When she says, your God will be my God, you see it in verse 16, it's the generic word for God, one of many gods. But then we notice that she takes on not just the word, the general word for God, but she uses the word Lord. You see it in your Bibles, and there in verse 17, may the Lord in capital letters, that's the personal name of God. This is the God who revealed himself to his people, the I am. And this is the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, the God of Israel. And somehow, in an untold way in this story, Ruth has come to know that God and to trust that God. Despite the family's failings, despite the fact that they'd turned, and maybe she's seen it in Naomi, that even in Naomi's distress and bitterness, Naomi still believes that God is in control, that there is only one God. And so she turns and she throws her lot in with Naomi, but with Naomi's God. She turns from the gods of home, the gods of her family, the gods of her nation, and she says, I'm throwing it all in with this God, the God of Israel, the God of Naomi. And I think for us, it helps us to understand something. This is a picture of what does it mean to be one of God's people? What does it mean to be a Christian? What Ruth models to us is it means to throw everything behind that one person. Just listen again to what she says. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. It's all in. Christianity is not about filling a gap in your life. It's saying, this is all of who I am. And it's throwing it all on one person. Ruth does that with Naomi. But ultimately, it's not about doing it with Naomi. It's doing it about doing it, throwing it all in behind Jesus. To say, his people are my people. His Father is my Father. And it's not where he will die, I will die. But it's where he has died, there I also have died. The New Testament picks up that language. We are joined to Jesus in his death and his resurrection and his ascended new life. We're all in with Jesus, and we've turned our back on maybe an easier life. For Ruth, that was going back to her mother's household, finding another husband. In the same way with Jesus. And Jesus says this himself, if you would follow me, you have to turn your back on everything else, every other source of life, every other God, every other thing you would worship, and trust that I will give you all that you need. What does it mean to be a Christian? It means to be all in with Jesus. And to go with Jesus, that is better by far than the old life. And just as for Ruth, we'll see that the road's not easy. It's not easy following Jesus. But it's the right road, with the greatest companion and the best destination. What does it look like to follow Jesus? It says, your Father is my Father. Your people are my people. I'm all in. And I pray that as believers we would know the reality of that. And maybe you're watching this and you're not a Christian. Well, I hope this helps to point you to what it means to follow Jesus. It's to turn your back on everything else and say, I'm all for you. Because Jesus has said that he is all for us.